Hey everyone, and welcome to the WCNC Charlotte Off the Clock podcast. I am your host, WCNC Charlotte Sports Director Nick Carboni. This week we are talking to a newly published author who also happens to be the former coach of North Carolina basketball. Matt Doherty won a national championship with Michael Jordan as players for the Tar Heels, and decades later, Doherty was called home by MJ and others to coach the team. Now, when he imagined how it would go, of course he went through all the scenarios, good and bad, but he admittedly could not have imagined it would go worse. In his first season, Doherty had a lot of success. He was AP National Coach of the Year, but over the next 2 years, his relationships with players deteriorated, and there was a lot of miscommunication and a lot of misunderstandings within the department, paired with some subpar results on the floor, and Doherty was forced to resign. In his new book, Rebound, From Pain to Passion, Doherty explores this traumatic event in his life, looks at the landmines he stepped on that he'd like to help others avoid, and tries to help future and current leaders as they try and overcome obstacles. We have a link to purchase the book and a story about Doherty on WCNCCharlotte.com/sports. Here's my conversation with Matt Doherty. Okay, Coach, I guess the first question to anybody who writes a book, why write a book? Why did you decide to write Rebound?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. I go back to when I lost my job in 2003 at UNC. A lot of people say, oh, you should write a book. And, I wasn't in a mental state to do that. Then I started to document things over the course of a year, just to put things down on paper, just so I remember if I did want to write a book. And then also to get it out. It's kind of therapeutic. It's gone well. I mean, we've already in a second print now. We've already sold through the first, and today's technically the official launch day, but we've already sold through it.
So I know that, it's therapeutic for you. I mean, but what do you want readers to get out of it before we get into all that? If somebody reads this book, what are they looking for and what are they getting? Yeah,
good question. My goal wasn't it to be therapeutic for me, but it was to be share leadership lessons, help people avoid the landmines that I stepped on as a leader. Because after I lost my job at North Carolina in 2003, I went on a leadership journey and realized that leadership is not taught. It is the most important topic, and it's the least formally taught. Yep. So as a result, there's a huge gap and mistakes are made. And even if you're taught leadership, but I don't know anybody that took a formal class in high school or college on leadership. Yeah. And yet we get into the working world, we get into the real world, and we're supposed to navigate this. And then if you're fortunate to get a leadership position or start your own company, you're going to make mistakes. So I'm trying to help people avoid the landmines I stepped on. And then what really has evolved a little bit, which has been a real neat bonus, is I've had people reach out to me. Some people I knew 30 years ago. Yeah. Some people I don't even know, and tell them how beneficial it's been to them because they've been through some kind of career setback, career disappointment, career betrayal. And, I think people like to know that they're not the only one, and then how to get through it. And I share some of those stories, and that's been pretty cool, a pretty cool side benefit to the book.
Your former college teammate Michael Jordan wrote the foreword to the book. Was there a moment after you left UNC where your relationship with him wasn't the same, or were you at any point worried about how he felt about how things went down, or was it kind of intact all the way through?
No, Michael, you get what you see with Michael. Like, he doesn't pull any punches. The day I was announced that I was forced to resign, he left me a lengthy voicemail expressing his disappointment. And it was one of the things meant so much to me to have his support through that tough time. And because, you know, we talk about the Carolina family, and when I was forced to resign, you know, that's the tough thing about going back to your alma mater is that if it doesn't work out, now you don't have a safety net. So I talk about that in the book. Felt like I was falling off the Empire State Building, Nick, with no safety net.
Yeah.
But to have people like Michael show support, and then through the years, Kenny Smith, Hubert Davis, you know, you don't know how you're going to react. Like, you know, what is it going to be like when I see these people and I step into a reunion? But like family, you know, they're going to accept your warts and all. And even when somebody's down and out, that's when people put their arms around you. And people like Brad Doherty and Sam Perkins, you know, Michael reaching out. When I text Michael, and I don't ask him, you know, for a lot of favors, because I know he gets pulled in a lot of directions, but this was important. So I text him for the forward on the book, and within 20 minutes he responded, said, "No problem. When do you need it by?"
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool. You know, people like Jim Nance, who wrote me a handwritten note. I got it yesterday, that he read the book. You know, he's an endorser, and you know, he read it and just his appreciation for the book, and he writes me a handwritten note. I'm like, wow, like that's Jim Nance, you know, that's pretty cool. So, you know, to have people like Michael, Jim Nance, former teammates, former players, show their support really has been therapeutic for me.
The book is called Rebound. What was the hardest thing for you to rebound from in all this?
Oh, wow. Probably my identity. Probably my identity. And with that, you know, without your identity, it leads to a lack of confidence, and it leads to depression.
Yeah. I
didn't know who I was. I knew who I wanted to be, but I really probably could never get there again. And that led to frustration and depression. And then where do you find fulfillment? Like, you know, what am I going to do? And I started reaching. I started the MBA, administration, and then I started the executive coaching. And then really with the book, it's given me fulfillment. Now I'm coaching again, but I'm just coaching corporate executives through my leadership practice at Vistage. And writing this book, I feel like I've connected and can help people that have gone through setbacks, who have faltered in their careers. And you know, that's given me great excitement and fulfillment that, you know, I do have a purpose. And, you know, I jokingly tell my kids at 21 and 23, you know, at 59, I didn't know what I want to do when I grow up. And now I feel like I know what I want to do.
Nice. You call them landmines. What would you say your biggest landmine was, you know, in North Carolina or otherwise that you talk about in the book?
Yeah, I think my biggest landmine was managing up to Coach Smith.
Yeah.
That was the landmine I stepped on. And I wasn't mature enough. I didn't go slow enough. The timing wasn't great. I asked questions that I thought were smart questions. The answers I got, I took for face value. And that was, you know, it was always the player-coach relationship. Yeah. You know, it was never, it was weird dynamic. You know, I have great love and respect for Coach Smith. And, but now I'm the head coach and he's the legend, the buildings, you know, And I wanted clarity on three things when I took the job. Can I bring my staff with me?
Yeah.
And I was told yes. My first year we're going to be good. My second year we're going to be bad. My third year we were going to be rebuilding. Can you get through that with me? Yes. And then the third thing I wanted to hear, it's your program. You can run it how you see fit. And Coach Smith said, yes, it's your program. You run it how you see fit. And I'm a literal person, Nick. And so I took it as, okay, it's my program. I can run it how I see fit. And obviously I'm going to, lean on Coach and Coach Guthridge as much as I can. So when I brought my staff, Coach Smith, I don't think deep down he liked that. I think that hurt him. And so, oh man, so that was the landmine, I think, that I stepped on, and I didn't, maybe I should have drilled down on that, when he said it's your program, run it how you see fit. And instead of asking Dick Bedore about bringing my staff with me, maybe I should have asked Coach Smith. Yeah. All right, Coach, you said it's my program. So are you okay if I bring my staff with me and don't retain the previous staff? Yeah. That process should have been slower, and I should have been more emotionally intelligent. But in 2000, I didn't know I never heard the term emotional intelligence. Yeah. Until I got forced to resign. I was forced to resign, and I went on a leadership journey. Yeah. And I'm sitting in a class, they're talking about emotional intelligence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have taken this class, maybe I'd still be the head coach at North Carolina.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest misconception or misconceived mistake that you made that you look back on and say, no, that's not really what happened?
Gosh.
I'm sure there's a few.
There's a bunch. I was accused of taking down, putting pictures of myself up in the office. When I got the job, the office was kind of a mess. Mm-hmm. Stained carpets, old furniture, trophies on the wall of when I played in a random tournament at Stanford, a wooden piece of driftwood from a tournament at Stanford. There was no pictures of Michael Jordan in the lobby.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I see everything in the eyes of a recruit. So what do? I put up a picture of Michael Jordan. See that picture?
Yeah.
Well, there's two versions of that picture. There's one of me in the background at the foul line, number 44.
Yeah.
And there's one of the bench and our bench in the background.
Yeah.
So why would I put that picture up? I'm asking you, Nick.
Oh, okay. Why put a picture of Michael Jordan up at North Carolina? Because recruits want to come and probably can't, but be Michael Jordan, be the next Michael Jordan at North Carolina.
And why would I put the picture of me in the background versus the team bench in the background?
Because now you're the head coach at North Carolina and you won a national championship with Michael Jordan.
And recruits now can say, he played with Michael, Yeah. And now there's an association, a connection, and it gives me more credibility with the recruits.
Yeah.
So I got credited with taking down pictures and putting pictures up of myself.
And it was,
that picture.
That picture.
Yeah.
Of Michael hitting a shot.
Michael hitting the shot. So those were some misconceptions. There was a lot of talk about me being hard on the players.
Yeah.
Some of that may have been fair. Some of it may have been just such a contrast to Coach Guthridge.
Yeah.
I did want to bring an intensity and a toughness to the program that I felt we lost, but maybe that contrast was so different. We did get early results. We were ranked number 1 in the country. We beat Duke at Duke. But maybe that's where I should have taken my foot off the gas a little bit more. Those are, people said I didn't respect the program, because I brought my staff with me. Well, I asked.
Mm-hmm.
I was told I could. I said, if I can't bring my staff with me, I'll stay at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So, those are some of the misconceptions, I think.
When you were at Notre Dame and there's all this love and support and say, hey, come home, come coach North Carolina. I'm sure that was probably something you probably couldn't turn down given the promises that were made to you. But did you have reservations about taking that job? And Bill was there between Dean and yourself, but just given the fact that you're going to be measured against Dean Smith.
Yeah. Well, I thought, okay, I'm being measured, I'm following Bill Guthridge, but the reality is I'm following Dean Smith. I mean, Dean Smith and Bill Guthridge are really almost one man, right?
Yeah.
I was ready to stay at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
My wife would joke. She'd say, one morning you'd come down with your Notre Dame, shorts and T-shirt on, and the next morning you'd come down with your North Carolina T-shirt and, whatever I slept in that night, usually it was a pair of gym shorts and a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Smith is such a good recruiter that he knew me probably better than I knew myself, and he knew what buttons to push. So that's when he had Michael Jordan call me, and Michael called and said, if you don't take the job, Coach Smith will probably go outside the family and hire Rick Majerus.
Yeah.
And I did not want somebody outside the program coaching our team.
Mm-hmm.
And right then and there, I said, okay, I got to do this for the program. I felt like was what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And that's probably the main reason I took the job. And I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? I lose my job and I'm in North Carolina and we have hopefully some money in the bank and I can get another job, but I didn't project the worst thing.
Yeah.
It happened. It was even worse than what I projected could happen. Yeah. And, the flip side, could I have stayed at Notre Dame and had, the success that Mike Bray has had? Yeah, maybe. But would I regret watching North Carolina play? I didn't want to look back and say I was afraid of the challenge.
Yeah. In terms of watching North Carolina play, after all this went down, and now you've got North Carolina, everything behind you, and obviously there's some pride there. I think one of your kids goes to North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Did it take a while for you to not look at that jersey, that logo, that program, and not feel hurt a little bit, or does that still exist?
Yeah, again, Nick, in the book I talk about driving over the Bitter River.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay a hefty toll. It's a winding bridge with no guardrails, and the wind is blowing. And you're driving over this bridge, and all of a sudden, North Carolina versus Syracuse last night in the Carrier Dome.
Yeah.
North Carolina, Florida State, Roy Williams wins his 900th game.
Yeah.
Coach Hamilton at Florida State signs an extension, 5-year extension, getting paid over $2.5 million a year. Those are all triggers.
Yeah.
That make you drive off into the river.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to keep two hands on the wheel, drive slowly. But this is where I talk in the book about forgiveness. You have to forgive. The most selfish thing we can do, Dan, is to forgive. Forgiveness is all over the Bible. And, Jesus could forgive the people that crucified him. I figured, I think I could forgive the people I feel may have slighted me, but more importantly, forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens when sometimes we make mistakes, we can beat ourselves up so much by saying, why didn't I do that? Why did I take that job? Why didn't I manage Coach Smith better? Why didn't I keep the staff in place? Why should I have stayed at Notre Dame? Though that talk is very negative, and all it does is create negative self-talk that can lead to bitterness and or depression. And it's not healthy. So you got to forgive yourself and say, hey, I'm human. I made mistakes. And Robin Roberts, on your competitor, ABC, I'm sorry.
She's great, so no problem there.
She has a saying, and I love to collect quotes.
I know, yes.
Make your mess your message. So that's my mess. And I want to share it with people. And if I can help one person become a better leader or deal with failure, then the book's a success.
That leads me to my final question, Coach. We're going to have a situation in Chapel Hill and a situation in Durham in the not so distant future where somebody's going to have to go in and take over for Roy Williams and Coach K. So say those people read your book. How will it help them
when they coach North Carolina and coach Duke?
Yeah, I think that I talk about the 6 no's of leadership. And I make up an acronym because that's what coaches do.
Mm-hmm.
We make up acronyms. And it's STEVIT. I jokingly say I recruited this kid from Wisconsin named Stevit, STEVIT. And the S in STEVIT is self. You got to know yourself. You know, how are you wired? Okay. What's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? Is it a good fit? Are you a good fit? Just because you get the offer doesn't mean you're a great fit. And I have great respect for coaches that turn down big jobs like Mark Few at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Jay Wright at Villanova. Bigger isn't always better. The next thing is team. You got to know your team. The third thing is critical is know your environment.
Yeah.
Know what you're stepping into. Where are the landmines?
Mm-hmm.
Can you navigate those landmines? What's your vision? That's easy. You're expected to win a national championship every year.
Yeah.
That's the vision. Industry. In STEVIT, know your industry, which, you know, at that level, if you're coaching at that level, you should know the industry. And lastly, and maybe most important, is truth. Mind for the truth. Have a truth teller on your staff. I jokingly say that if I was a head coach tomorrow, my lead assistant would have a business card with his name, and his title would be truth teller. That we all need truth tellers on our staff, that you allow it's their obligation to come to you when they feel something's not right, close the door in a respectful manner and tell you, Nick, you screwed up in practice today. You should never have called that kid out in front of his teammates like that. And then you've got to take it. Yeah. Even though you're competitive and even though you want to respond, you got to sit back and say, wow, Matt, I know that's not easy for you to say. I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention. And maybe even going a step farther and saying that in front of the staff so that the staff is more inclined to surface the truth. Because what happens is the higher you go in an org chart, the less truth you get. So you're making decisions based on non-truths. And so you sweep these truths, these things under the carpet. And a friend of mine said that the pile gets so high you trip over it.
You're a quote collector, as you said. I was going to ask you, what is your go-to quote today? I'm sure you have many. What's the one that's in your head today?
Praise the actions you want repeated. Dean Smith, one of the best. one of the best. I mean, he's the best to ever do it. And I get goosebumps because I learned so much from him as a player and when I was coaching. And I wish I managed that relationship better when I was coaching.
Yeah.
It was, but he had so much wisdom. Crazy actions you want repeated. So, Nick, you did a great job with the interview.
I appreciate that. Hopefully the next interviewer repeats it then.
There you go.
Thanks again to Coach for sharing that, and good luck with the book. You can still hear Coach Doherty locally on WFNZ Talking Sports as well as WBT. That is it for the WCNC Charlotte Off the Clock podcast. Do us a favor and subscribe or follow to keep up with these episodes, and I will see you on air Monday through Friday at 6 and 11 on WCNC Charlotte.